Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? So last night was very active in the chat room. People were going crazy, and you guys were bombarding me with a lot of questions. This is how I know when somebody has introduced a new term or brought up a new subject, and then they'll come and ask me. So a couple of things real quick, because people say, have you saw so-and-so's videos? I don't listen to other content creators talking about the Iraqi dinar. Unless you guys bring them to my attention, no, I don't watch them. And let me tell you why. If people are out there watching each other's videos, to me, those are people who are stuck in almost like a hive mind. You start getting lazy about your content. You start listening to what other people are saying, and then you just create a video regurgitating their bullshit. Right or wrong. It doesn't make a difference. And you ended up creating something. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Before we get started, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I certainly do appreciate it. If you're thinking about buying gold and silver, head on over to our friends at Miles Franklin. The link will be down below in the description. When you make your purchase, make sure you use promo code Pimpy, P-I-M-P-Y, and they'll take care of you. If you have any additional questions, you can reach us over here at this phone number or over here at this particular email. For all orders over $10,000, reach out by email and we'll make sure that you get a great deal. So come on over to Miles Franklin and add to your precious metal inventory. This is what the Iraqi dinar community suffers from. The phenomenon where everyone shares the same information, whether it is right or wrong, is known as the illusory truth effect. And how do we get this way in the dinar community? Nobody has a degree in currencies or even in economies. They can tell you that, but you can tell by the way they're speaking, they don't. They just say that to make themselves good and give themselves credibility. They don't have experiences nor knowledge in economics and currencies. And they can tell you that, but it's not the truth because you can tell by the way they speak. They all suffer from this right here. Now, you don't have to have a degree or have a background in economics or currencies in order to talk about the Iraqi dinar. But if you don't have any of those two things, then you better actually do the research. And you can tell people who do the research versus do not do the research. If all of them regurgitate the same bullshit that you hear out there, they're lazy content creators. They're not doing the research at all. They all suffer from the same thing, illusory truth effect. And then their listeners suffer from it because they want to believe them so bad that what they're saying is true, that anybody that comes along and tells you otherwise, now you guys are suffering from cognitive dissonance. And then you end up creating dinar Karens, just like you see on the screen there. I figured out that a lot of people probably have been in fights with family members who told you this is a scam, or you've already spent the money in your head. Somebody comes along like me and says, hey, there's some things you should take in consideration, or this part of the information that you're being told is wrong, then I'm the bad guy. I get it. It's embarrassing. You've been running around regurgitating the same lies and bullshit that these people have because they're lazy content creators. So what ends up happening is they listen to each other's YouTube channel. They'll say, no, I don't. Yes, you do. You can tell they do. Like you have some people out there saying, this is the studying of the Iraqi dinar. No, it's not. It's regurgitating the bullshit. Okay? When these people say, I take a deep dive. No, they don't. Because if that's their idea of a deep dive and they dove in, they'd break their neck because of how shallow it is. Okay? And I can tell you that because of the way they talk. So, like I said, why do I want to listen to the other content creators? I don't need to. I actually do the research. I don't need to hear what they say. But like I said, sometimes I'll come across one of their videos and I'll click in and I'll just hear what they're saying or how they're saying it. Other than that, unless you guys bring them to my attention, I bring this all up because in the chat last night, I could tell when something new has been introduced to the dinar community or a subject that has been brought up once again that hasn't been spoken about for a while. Like when we start talking about the Chinese elders, the White Dragon Society. But yeah, you guys don't get stuck in this. You end up becoming a dinar Karen. Somebody asked me last night, Pimpy, there's so much confusion. I know we keep talking about the deletion of the zeros, but do you know why they added the zeros in the first place? Why is the dinar is known as the hyperinflated currency? And that's a good question because sometimes it's a little misleading, but we'll cover that here in just a moment. So I guess the new thing is now, instead of reinstate the rate, they call it a reinstituted, just so you understand. While both terms involve some form of restoration or implementation, here's the difference between the two. Reinstated typically refers to restoring something that existed previously. So when people talk about reinstating the Iraqi dinar rate, well, again, there's wrong information that's out there. They're trying to say that they devalued the Iraqi dinar when the Iraqi dinar exchange rate at the time was $3.22. So the thought being that they'll reinstate the Iraqi dinar back to the 322 rate. That's actually not true. It wasn't 322. It's way lower than that, and we'll get into that another time. Reinstituted suggests the establishment of something new or the reintroduction of a significant changed entry. So if they're going to restore back to the original one, that's a reinstatement. There is no reinstitute. Just understand the difference between what the two mean. This is a biggie, and I spoke about this before. The hydrocarbon law. The Iraqi hydrocarbon law primarily focuses on the management of hydrocarbon investments. Some companies offer what's known as revenue sharing. That means depending on how much money the company makes, you'll get a part of it. But it only goes to those individuals who are invested in the company. As far as your common everyday citizen, they're not going to get crap. Hydrocarbon law primarily focuses on the management of the hydrocarbon investment, revenue sharing, restructuring of the Ministry of Oil, and establishing the Iraqi National Oil Company. The law aims to regulate the oil sector, attract foreign investment, and ensure national control over revenue and exploration. While the law allows for foreign companies to invest in Iraqi oil sector, it maintains mechanisms to keep control in hand of the national government. The law does not include provisions for paying dividends directly to the Iraqis. There you go, right there. So the law does not include provisions for paying dividends directly to Iraqi citizens for the hydrocarbon gas revenues. I know that he's going around like, oh, they're going to get payments and stuff. Gaddafi, he used to give the people of Libya shares of the money that was generated by the oil. You know who doesn't do that? Iraq. Can they change it around? Yeah, of course they can. But that's not what the hydrocarbon law is. What Kuwait does is they set a budget. And if there's a surplus at the end, then they spread it out to the citizens. That's what they do. So I know there's content creators out there saying that, ooh, the Iraqi people are going to get paid money directly from the hydrocarbon law, but that's false. That's a lie. And all you had to do was a little research to find that out. Are the Iraqi people going to benefit from this? Of course they are. But they're not going to get any type of direct payment at all from this. So people started asking me, Pimpy, what is policy-based inflation? And more than one person asked me. I said, oh, good Lord, somebody has introduced something new to the group. And now people are talking about it. Just understand that one is something that happens naturally, which is inflation. And the other one is policies to help control inflation. So inflation is purely economic sense, refers to the general increase in price levels due to the increase in quantity of money circulating in the economy. It occurs when the growth of the money stock outpaces the level of productivity, leading to a rise in prices across goods and services. Central banks typically target a specific inflation rate, such as 2 to 3%, to maintain price stability and economic growth. And how do they try to maintain a level between 2 and 3%? Well, they use what's known as policy-based inflation. This is a concept that relates to how central banks use monetary policy tools to influence inflation rates. Central banks employ various measures, such as adjusting interest rates or conducting open market operations to control inflation levels within the targeted range. By implementing contradictory or expansionary policies, central banks aim to either curb rising inflation or stimulate economic activities during periods of low inflation. So what is the difference? Here we go. Nature. Inflation itself is a general increase in price levels due to monetary factors. Policy-based inflation refers specifically to the deliberate actions taken by the central bank through monetary policy tools to manage inflation rates. See, one is used to control the other. What causes this? Inflation results from an imbalance between money supply growth and productivity levels. Policy-based inflation is caused by central bank interventions aimed at influencing inflation rates towards predetermining targets. Control. Inflation is a broader economic phenomenon influenced by various factors beyond the central bank's control. Policy-based inflation is directly controlled by the central bank's actions through monetary policies like interest rates, adjustments, and open market operations. So, what's the objective? The objective of inflation is often seen as maintaining price stability and supporting economic growth. Policy-based inflation aims to achieving specific inflation targets set by the central bank to guide overall economic performances. Like I said, the policy-based inflation is a tool used to maintain inflation. Not to be confused with anything else, hyperinflation is an extreme form of inflation characterized by rapid and out-of-control price increases. Hyperinflation occurs when inflation rates exceed 50% per month, leading to a significant devaluation of the currency and causing severe economic disruptions. Unlike regular inflation, hyperinflation is rare and can have catastrophic effects on the economy. This leads into why the zeros were added. Why is the dinar called the hyperinflated currency? And this adds into why Iraq added 3 zeros to their currency, all right? Because Iraq's currency was severely devalued, so they added 3 zeros to its currency. There were many other reasons as well. 1, they had a huge increase in their money supply. After the Gulf War in 1990, Iraq faced UN sanctions that prevented it from ordering more high-quality notes from Delarue, leading to the production of new notes. The pre-1990 notes were known as the Swiss dinars, while the new notes were now called the Saddam dinars. With the sanctions and excessive government printing, the value of the Saddam currency devalued rapidly. By late 1995, the exchange rate on the black market was $1 for 3,000 Saddam dinars. Too much printing of money. Add that to these other factors. Lack of economic growth. Iraq's economic growth percentage by year between 1990 and 1999. So you could look at 1990, 91, 92, and 93. They had negative growth. See that up here? Then 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, and 99, they had positive growth. But if you look at it, that all equaled up to an average of negative 1.89% economic growth. They didn't grow. Sure, some years were better than others, but collectively for that decade was bad. Another contribution to this is the loss in confidence. Iraq people lost confidence in the Iraqi currency during Saddam's regime due to hyperinflation, economic mismanagement, international sanctions. The value of the Iraqi dinar plummeted, leading to a lack of trust in the currency amongst the population. The situation worsened after 2003 invasion of Iraq, which led to further instability and uncertainty regarding the country's economic future. Demand pull inflation. Since Iraq was experiencing 2 wars and sanctions, it made it hard for Iraq to keep up with supplies and needs of the Iraqi people. And of course, the government budget stress. Iraq experiencing events such as wars, political instability, economic crisis, the strain on the government's budgets. Iraq's government struggle to collect taxes, excessive spending, and borrowing lead to an increase in the money supply and inflation. So as you can see, all these things contributed to the reason why the Iraqi dinar added 3 zeros. Somebody was asking me, wasn't it policy-based inflation that caused them to add the zeros to the currency? I was like, no, one is a tool of the other. Why? You guys asking me this. And so I said, I'll explain to people what the difference is in case they come across it. Understand the two are different situations. One is used to control the other. But to strictly say that the sole reason they added the 3 zeros to the Iraqi dinar is policy-based inflation is not accurate. Yes, it was the Central Bank of Iraq that devalued the currency. Yes, it was the Central Bank of Iraq that added the 3 zeros to the currency. Inflation rate between 1960 and 2024. We don't need to go that far back, but look, you can see right here. Here's the first Gulf War. Well, these other ones, see where it says 0? That's because they weren't reporting the number. So the first Gulf War, you can see what the inflation rates are. 1991, it is 180.95%. That's really high. 92, it's 83.62. 93, it's 207.69%. 1994, it's 448.5%. In 1995, it is 387.31%. See that number down below in the red? That's the change between each year, the difference between the two. And then in 1996, it was negative 16.12%. But when you average all these things up, by the time we got into redenominating the currency and the new Iraqi dinars were created, getting away from the Saddam banknotes and getting away from the Swiss dinars to the currency that we have today, all these things contributed to it. Hyperinflation, mismanagement, all those things played a key part of it. So there is no one thing that happened. That's why I think it's funny when you guys point something out to me or tell me to check out one of these videos and I listen to the way they talk, they make it sound like, oh yeah, no problem, it's just this, it's just that. You know, look, I was part of that group too when I first started. When you hear the news and you think about what's going on, there's a part of you that goes, you know, that makes sense. You know what I mean? Or you try to simplify what's going on. Because people are saying, Pimpy, you were different when you first started versus now. That's called growing in knowledge because I actually do the research. As you go along and you become more educated on the Iraqi dinar and the economy and everything else, you start to realize that a lot of these myths and bullshit that's floating around in the Iraqi dinar community is wrong. So if these people claiming to have a background in economy and they've done this and they've done that, but still regurgitate the bullshit and the lies, then they are purposely misleading you. It's one thing to be ignorant of the facts and try to make a guess at what's happening. It's another when you're saying to the world, I do a deep dive every day. I have a background in economics. And no, if you do, then you would not be regurgitating all the bullshit and the lies. So I hope that answers your question as to why they added the 3 zeros to the dinar. It's a combination of things. And also the hydrocarbon law. Unfortunately, where it stands at the moment, the Iraqi people are not going to get checks directly from the passing of this law. That doesn't mean it can't change, but the way it's written now, it's not going to happen. So those people out there telling you, oh, when the Iraqi people start picking up checks, no, they're not. They're not getting that. The Iraq government has so much rebuilding of their infrastructure to get back on their feet. And there's a lot of debt out there that they need to pay off. There's a lot of things that have to happen first before the Iraqi people, in my opinion, could benefit from something like that. They have to get back on solid ground. Their whole country needs to be rebuilt. There has to be a lot of stability in the country before this type of thing can happen. Stability in the banking sector, stability in the economy, stability in your politicians, stability in the country, period. Once they do that consistently, then these types of things will happen. All this good stuff you're hearing right now really didn't start coming about until Al-Kadhimi got in office. He started the motion and then Al-Sadani came along and he continued it. So a lot of great things are happening, but don't suffer from this over here. They all regurgitate the same bullshit. Nobody ever takes the time to explain to you in detail what each of these things mean and how each of these things are affected because they don't know. They don't have that knowledge because they don't actually deep dive. And then their listeners hear it and they all suffer from the same effect. Yeah, you know, I was part of that group. And then I started breaking away because I ended up being an independent thinker. I was like, something's not right here. What's being said doesn't seem right. And I wanted to make sure that if I'm going to share information with people who listen to my videos, I want it to be as correct as possible. Now, I'm not saying I get it right all the time, but I do. And by the way, I do know it all. It's just that sometimes I can't recall it when I need to. Just kidding. Anyways, you guys, don't be a dinar Karen and don't get stuck in this group. Illusory truth effect. Be open to all information, or else whenever this event happens and it doesn't happen the way you're told, all those fights with your family and everything else, they're just going to sit around for years and make fun of you. I'm not saying it's not going to happen that way. What I'm saying is, what is the probability of it happening that way? I do think it's funny though, like Dinar Karen said, why are you investing in the Iraqi dinar? Why? Because I think it's going to change in value and I could benefit from it. Anyways, I hope that squares some things away with you guys. I look forward to your comments and I'll get back at you later. I'm out.